This chat is about the dynamics that happened in Spain and Portugal that led to the expulsion of the Jews from those countries. And it's a unique set of circumstances, much later than when it happened in England, a couple of hundred years later, and more impactful in a way because the Sephardic Jewish tradition, which had grown up in the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, was really rich intellectually, rich with innovation, rich with culture, and had been there for a long time. It was well established. It had been there for 1,000 years, essentially. And so in the late 1400s, as the dynamics in Spain began to move in this direction, it's interesting to look at how different and yet the same. I don't know if I should say the same, but the dynamics that led to the expulsion in both of these nations is different. So Spain had a lot of people converting. They had Jewish people converting to Christianity. Then they put an edict out that said convert or leave, like either become a Christian or leave Spain, get out. And so a lot of people did convert. There was, scholars think, about 300,000 in Spain at this time, and about 200 converted, or a big chunk of them, most people converted to Christianity, and conversos they were called. And so then, once that happened, the Christian community then began to be concerned that, well, now we've got these Jewish people that are saying they're Christians, and do we really believe that? And what if they're not really Christians? And what if they're still Jews? And what if, because now they're in and amongst us, what if they start to corrupt us? And so they managed that poorly, that fear, and they developed what we know as the Spanish Inquisition, the Holy Inquisition, the Office of the Holy Inquisitor in 1478. And so they began to go into the community and try to discern among the Jews, because in its origin it was to parse out any heresy, any fakes that were still practicing Judaism behind the closed doors. They were still lighting some candles and eating some bread on a Friday night. And so that began to see a lot of people tortured until they confessed. Executions started happening. It was really a brutal time, almost like the SS. And let's talk about the relevance of all of this, because it's the realization that if you go back several hundred years, a king of Spain had said, these people are polluting our soil. So what you see is just that thought seed went into the ground of the hearts and minds of the people, and it blooms into expulsion. And that's how things seem to go, is that if you believe something, then it eventually goes to its logical conclusion. And I think you see that all through history. There's what is past is prologue. It's a really powerful thought. So anyway, so they are, the Jews are eventually told that they've got a window of time, 4 months or so, and they got to get out. They got to get out of Spain if they won't convert. Either again, it's convert or leave, but this time it's an edict of expulsion. And what the Spaniards did differently and in a more kind fashion is that they gave the Jewish community the power and a little bit of time to liquidate their assets so they could take their wealth with them. So any debts that they were holding for people, their houses and lands, because you could own own property at this time as a Jew. Any Jews were not allowed, however, to have gold or silver. So how they were going to get transportable wealth, that was unclear, because it wasn't going to be in the coins of the day. They weren't allowed to have those. So at this time, the 100,000 or so Jewish people who were largely in the cities had to liquidate all their assets all at the same time. So what winds up happening is economic chaos. It just, from an economic standpoint, it just decimates, and in the end, it has a big effect on everybody in Spain. So the Sephardic Jews disperse. Some go into Italy, some go into Central Europe, some find their way all the way back to Israel. The poorer Jewish community winds up in North Africa and under the Muslim rule. So that's, and what happens when they disperse in that fashion is that they take with them their beautiful culture and their powerful innovations and intellectual accomplishments. And so that becomes like a seed pod that just explodes into the world, whereas it had just been concentrated in Spain previously. They had about 1,000 years. They'd been in Spain for about 1,000 years. So Portugal is a little bit different. They learned some lessons from the expulsion in Spain. They expelled their Jews in 1496, so 4 years after Spain, and they didn't want the economic chaos that happened in Spain, so they had the edict and they told the Jews to get out. And what they did with the Jews that didn't get out is they just said, okay, now you're a Christian. They just declared them Christians and treated them as Christians if they stayed. So that's how the next round of expulsions in Europe, where we pushed an entire people group out of the land that they'd been in for generations.